Hi, we're Emily and Dean from the accessibility team at Nationwide Building Society. I'm Emily Coward and I lead the accessibility team.
And I'm Dean Holden, I'm accessibility technologist.
Nationwide is different from other financial service providers because we're a building society, and that means, unlike banks, we're owned by our 16 million members. Accessibility is really important for us because we were founded with a strong social purpose with inclusion at its heart. Mutuality and the fact we're owned by our members and run for their benefit is all about bringing people together through inclusivity and social fairness. To provide the best experience for our members and enable them to do the things they want or need to do, we need to help our colleagues understand their responsibilities when it comes to designing and building accessible and inclusive experiences. As part of our efforts to do this, we've started an Accessibility Champions Network. We're going to talk about our network, how we've set it up, what we've done so far, what we're planning to do in the future, and share some of the things we've done well, and also share some of our learnings. We're in the very early stages of setting up our Accessibility Champions Network, having only started the network late last year. So far, we've got 15 core champions and 15 unofficial champions or stakeholders in wider parts of the business. Our Accessibility Champions Network is designed to support the work of the accessibility team. So first, let's tell you a bit about the work that we do.
As a team, our work is divided into three parts. The first is all around education and training. Most colleagues at Nationwide know that digital accessibility exists, but not necessarily always 100% sure exactly what it is. So we're here to provide that knowledge, to share practical info, resources, training to initially get people started on the right track, but then to develop that knowledge further so it becomes embedded in everything everyone does.
Closely linked to that is support. So you start the education and training piece, and it generates lots of interest and questions across the business. We found that people are very passionate about accessibility and doing the right thing, but often they don't know what to do or how to do it well. So the accessibility team is there to help them think with that accessibility mindset and help them build accessibility into everything they're working on. We help by providing support when they have questions or if they just need a bit of advice and encouragement.
And finally, we have a governance forum. The forum's a group of up to 15 key stakeholders. They've got responsibility across all our major platforms and journeys. It meets once a month and monitors and measures how well we're performing in terms of accessibility. As the accessibility team, we support the work of the forum rather than providing the governance ourselves. So Emily, you've been accessibility lead now since January, and I know the Champions Network's important to you, but why is that?
So we've got a large digital estate with hundreds of digital projects going on at any one time. And in order to make those products and services better for our members, we really need to have influence in all those pieces of work to get everyone thinking about accessibility and building in an inclusive way. But with a team of two, it's just not possible to do that. So we need a support network of champions to help us with that work, enabling us to embed accessibility and inclusive design practices within every team and within every project. So Dean, you were part of an accessibility project that helped set up the accessibility team and started the first attempts at our Champions Network last year. How did you get on with that?
It didn't work as well as we'd hoped, but we did learn a couple of valuable lessons along the way. The first thing we learned was about our approach. So at Nationwide, we're in the middle of a rebuild of our corporate website. It's a massive project that, being so big, obviously needs accessibility input across the various project teams. And a Champions Network embedded across them seemed to be the obvious way, so that what we did, we handpicked colleagues based upon previous interest they'd shown in accessibility. But although they might have shown an interest in the past, with the time pressures of the work that they were already under, having that plus giving them extra responsibility on something they didn't necessarily feel knowledgeable enough in, it set up really with completely the wrong frame of mind and wasn't really well received. So we learned that it's important to encourage volunteers rather than to volunteer them. You'll find that people who are interested and passionate about accessibility will make themselves known to you, because they want to do the right thing and they want to help. The second thing really was that by using a project as a driver, we tried to go a bit big bang with the network. So without really the plan on how we're going to support the champions from within the accessibility team. So it's a two-way street, whereas an accessibility team, you get support from the network, but you have to have their back too, providing support, training, resources. We weren't really ready to do that and should have encouraged the network to grow organically and really plan some finer detail about how we're going to support it.
So although it didn't quite go according to plan, were there some things that worked well?
Yes, one thing that we did was create an internal team website, which we built to support any colleague around Nationwide in thinking about accessibility online, not just our champions. There are accessibility guides about key things to consider with tips and common pitfalls, as well as links out to relevant WCAG guidelines. We've got articles about different types of accessibility, assistive technology, some in-house tools, ways of contacting us, details of training. It relieves some of the pressure from us as our time is very much in demand, and it provides everyone, including the champions, a handbook, a focal point. It still needs some work, but it's been a good start. We've also created community channels in places like Microsoft Teams and Yammer, which are both used pretty widely across Nationwide. And we've done that to encourage engagement, all to help create a team feeling, a community feeling amongst the champions. They use the channels to get in touch with us, share ideas, ask for help, and that seems to be working well too.
Yes, and to encourage that community feel, we've increased the visibility of our accessibility team across the business through features in newsletters, talking to lots of different teams across the society, getting people interested in accessibility, finding out what people are working on, finding out what difficulties or problems they're having when it comes to accessibility, and working out how we can help and how we can support them, but also how the champions can best help with that. That in turn has helped identify colleagues who are interested in accessibility and want to become champions. So, for example, we've been working with the team responsible for Nationwide's experience language. And through that work, several of the designers and developers have become champions because they want support with the work that they're doing to make the experience language more accessible. But they also want to give back and support other people as well. And the great thing about that is we're building up a diverse network of people with different skill sets, different levels of seniority, different backgrounds, different opinions, and they've all got different ideas, but they're all willing and enthusiastic about doing accessibility well and making a difference for our members and for our colleagues. But the important thing with our network is enabling our champions and starting to build their confidence. So after the initial setup of the network last year, I held one-to-ones with each of our existing champions to find out what they knew about accessibility, but also what they wanted to get out of the network. For anyone who joins the network in the future, we try to work out what their goals are, we find out what areas of accessibility they're interested in, and we put them in touch with other champions who might be working on similar things. So we start to build up their knowledge and their contacts and enable them to work as part of the accessibility team and within the accessibility community we're starting to build up at Nationwide. Also, as part of those one-to-ones, some of the champions mentioned they often felt overwhelmed with this new responsibility, even though they wanted to do it and they wanted to take it on. They didn't feel like they were experts or they had enough knowledge to do the role well, and they wanted more training in specific areas. For example, understanding more about cognitive impairments or how to use a screen reader. But they also wanted to understand what was relevant to their role as a designer or as a content editor or as a developer. So giving them training on the things that they're interested in is key to building up their knowledge and their confidence when they're talking to other colleagues about accessibility.
And one of the ways that we're helping to build that confidence is that more recently we've kicked off a series of regular meetings with the network to keep them updated on what we're doing, but also for them to share with us and the other champions what they've been up to, issues they're facing, how they've resolved those issues. It's important it continues to be an active network and for it to feel active to them. Emily, I know you want to keep this network growing, but what are your plans for the network for the future?
Well, we've got lots of plans, but for the moment, our focus is in 4 main areas. So at the moment, our champions are learning, they're building up their confidence, they're raising awareness, and they're encouraging other people to become champions. If possible, we want to have champions throughout the business in every team, every project and hub if we can do that. So the first area we're really focusing on is training. We need to get all the champions up to a decent level of general accessibility knowledge, making sure they have the basics right. So what it is, why it's important and who benefits from it. If they know those core concepts, they can communicate those to other people in the business and we're getting the right messages out there. We're then going to focus on specific training for each discipline represented by the champions. So really focusing on the areas which have the most impact. For example, for UI designers, it might be understanding more about color contrast, whereas for developers, it's the importance of writing semantic HTML with a focus on forms, as we've got a lot of forms across nationwide products. The second key area is improving guidance materials, so involving the champions in creating and improving the resources on our internal accessibility website is essential for us. One of the champions recently ran a piece of research on the website to help us understand if colleagues were able to find relevant accessibility information to support their day-to-day tasks. And we learned a lot from that piece of work. So, for example, one of the things we know we need to improve is how our filtering system works on our guide pages. It needs to filter guides to the relevant discipline. Again, the champions are involved in the UX and design pieces of work to support that. It helps build up their knowledge, but it also contributes back to the goals of the accessibility team to help our colleagues understand how to create accessible experiences. The third area is creating a learning pathway for the champions. We need to create a pathway for the champions to follow to help increase their knowledge, guide their learning and demonstrate that they're improving. One of the ways we might do this is for the champions is by working accessibility goals into their personal objectives. And that might be things like contributing to documentation, giving talks across the business or externally, or perhaps running training sessions by themselves. And finally, the fourth area is sharing our successes. We've got to tell people about the great work the champions are doing and how they are doing it. So we'll be providing a section on our internal website for this, but also getting out into the business with the champions to talk about the work they're doing. Or we're putting case studies together to share with other teams, projects and hubs on how to do accessibility well at Nationwide and how the champions are key to this.
So that's where we are at the moment. We're at the real beginnings of our Champions Network. We've learned quite a few things along the way on what works and what doesn't. But we feel we're starting to move in the right direction and the champions we've got are committed, engaged and active.
Yeah, so we've learned quite a few things along the way, but for us, probably the most important thing we found in our short time is making sure that the network is mutually beneficial. Champions have to care about the subject, but they also need to have that trust and confidence that the accessibility team are behind them and that they are there to support them if and when they need any help. It makes for a much stronger network if the champions feel supported and they're provided with knowledge and training that they need to help others do accessibility well. We're obviously still learning and we know we've got to adapt and change our network as it grows, but we're really keen to hear other people's stories and learn from other organisations who have more established accessibility networks than ours. We want to keep developing our network and we want to give our champions the best support we possibly can. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.